Well, for the second day in a row, Alberta protesters have lined the street in front of the Parliament buildings with their vehicles. The United We Roll caravan traveled to Ottawa to register oil patch anger over the Trudeau government's handling of energy policy, including pipeline proposals, the Liberal carbon tax, and the environmental review process for energy projects. Professor Monica Gattinger is director of the Centre for Science, Society and Policy at the University of Ottawa. I asked her why energy policy is in such disarray.
When it comes to energy policy and regulation, it's really important to strike the right balance, a durable balance between market imperatives, imperatives in the economy, environmental imperatives, and imperatives in climate, and security and affordability imperatives. And the Trudeau government came into power, in fairness to them, really trying to strike that balance. But I think what we've seen over the last number of years since they've been in power is that on each leg of that stool, they run into challenges. So on market access for Canadian oil and gas, we've seen that they've had real challenges on that Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion project. They've had to purchase the pipeline. The Federal Court of Appeal has quashed the government's decision to permit that pipeline. On carbon pricing, when they came into power, they put in place the Pan-Canadian Framework on clean growth and climate change. Now we've got a very different set of governments at the provincial level and growing frustration around carbon pricing and real pushback on carbon pricing. And then when it comes to reforming energy decision-making and putting in place greater measures to strengthen public confidence in energy decision-making, we've got a lot of pushback there around particularly Bill C-69, which is critiqued on along a number of lines.
Just one indication of the kind of confusion, or what I would call confusion. The NEB, National Energy Board, has announced that it won't consider the climate change impacts of the Trans Mountain Pipeline, and yet it did, or intended to, with the Energy East pipeline. So how is that fair?
Well, I think this is, you're really pointing to one of the things that's been, I think, a fairly substantial thorn in the side for anybody in the broader energy and climate space who is concerned about whether it's, building energy projects or putting in place meaningful action on climate change, is that we have not had stable, durable policy. So for investors, this is a real problem. If you've got the rules changing on a regular basis, that does not create a stable and predictable investment climate. But also if you're, on the side of really wanting to get meaningful action on climate, if you're an environmental activist, seeing a lot of changes, one day we have a carbon price, the next day we don't. One day the NEB is considering climate impacts, the next day they're not. This has been very frustrating, I think, all around in the energy sector.
So if you had the ear of the next Prime Minister, whatever political stripe he or she may be, what would your first piece of advice be?
Well, I think we need to look at the long term. Canada has a tremendous bounty of energy resources, not just in oil and gas, but across a whole host of different sources, whether it's, nuclear or hydro, you name it. And I think we really need to think about what does Canada's energy future look like in an age of climate change, and think through in a very serious fashion, where is it that the country wants to go? What's the vision when it comes to energy, and how can we take advantage of opportunities that present themselves on the global energy stage, but also make sure that we're doing what needs to be done domestically to ensure that we're developing our energy resources in a responsible fashion.
It's part of my conversation with Monica Gattinger. She is a professor at the University of Ottawa.